Support WrestleTalk!
Donate on Patreon.
It has been only 3 weeks since we were last discussing big pay-per-view rumours, and boy howdy, how things have changed. Because ahead of the Royal Rumble, the internet was ablaze with all kinds of wild speculation. The Rock would return and win, Batista would be a surprise entrant, and Hulk Hogan would compete and be miraculously cured of racism by returning Papa Shango and his voodoo. 2 negatives. Kind of making a positive there. In contrast, the rumour mill has nearly ground to a halt when it comes to Elimination Chamber. There are barely any kernels of backstage wisdom to be pecked at by wrestling's Kaporage Bora Dave Meltzer, probably because 2 of the matches involve locking the participants inside of a pod inside of a chamber, so unless one of them is Harry Houdini, risen from the dead, I feel like we're in for a pretty straightforward showing. And on top of that, one of those matches also involves almost the entire women's roster from both Raw and SmackDown. That then leaves very little room for trickery. Regardless though, we have cast our nets far and wide in search of rumours, and while some of them are certainly little more than bait, we have managed to land a few whales. So with that said, I am El Fakador Laurie Blake, and here is every Elimination Chamber rumour we could find. Daniel Bryan to win. Daniel Bryan's latest run with the WWE title has proven that the man just gets professional wrestling. He just gets it. It's in his soul. Whether it's throwing soft drinks at fans or throwing title belts in the bin, which admittedly wasn't a recycling bin, so maybe his commitment to character isn't as on point as he wishes. But it is a gimmick that is going over well. So you got to imagine that WWE are going to milk it for all that it's worth. Oat milking it, obviously. So although at the time of recording this, the bookies' betting odds haven't exactly come out, the Marks Who book, the booking marks, the bookmarks out there, they seem to be giving the victory to Daniel Bryan in the Elimination Chamber match. And the obvious reason is he's just so hot right now. He's so hot. I mean, it obviously helps that he's got a big, bald, ginger bodyguard with him now, but I'm still cross I wasn't considered for that role. But if we see anything other than Bryan walking out of the chamber with the belt, it's going to be a huge surprise. Especially as the introduction of the new hemp belt would seem to suggest that he's going to hold on to it for some time, right? Because a new title belt is not exactly something WWE take lightly. I mean, look how long it took them to just make those women's tag titles. But I guess really the longevity of Bryan's run depends on how long it takes for this hemp belt to biodegrade. Also, thanks to Rowan and potentially also a returning Luke Harper, Bryan has a distinct numbers advantage with his plaid-wearing bearded collective, so long as the lads can actually get inside the chamber and they aren't doing a 30-day violent detox. A follow-on from Veganuary. Frienduary. Now, as a free bit of fantasy booking, you can see Bryan holding onto the belt until WrestleMania, where he'll then drop it to a babyface who can burn the belt, making everyone in the first 5 rows contact high, which will then really up the excitement when New Day bring the pancakes out. More matches to be made. As it stands, there are only 4 matches on the Elimination Chamber card. The WWE Championship Chamber match, the Women's Tag Chamber match, Miz and Shane versus the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Championships and the Best in the World status, and Buddy Murphy versus Akira Tozawa for the Cruiserweight belt. Anyone who has watched WWE before will know that 4 matches isn't going to cut it. On what will likely be a 4 to 4.5 hour show, including the kickoff show, WWE likes to have at least 7 or 8 matches to make sure that the very best ones won't be given enough time. So, what other matches might be made? Thinking logically, neither the US or the Intercontinental Championships are currently being defended, so there's definite possibility that matches will be made on the go-home shows next week. IC champ Bobby Lashley is currently feuding with Finn Balor through the medium of Lio Rush. That's a fine match to have on the pay-per-view, and you've got to imagine that one of Rusev or Shinsuke Nakamura will surely get a pop at new US champ R-Truth after they form their weird duo of nations this past week on SmackDown Live. Maybe it'd be a triple threat, probably not. Also missing in action are the Raw tag belts. And although the Revival once again earned a title shot at the belts on Raw because they're gluttons for punishment, the match has not exactly been made for the pay-per-view as of recording this. Now, some sites are also suggesting that Rey Mysterio versus Andrade could be shoved in just as a filler match, but realistically, hopefully not, as that showdown deserves a much better and bigger stage, perhaps the grandest of them all. Neither of the women's titles are being defended as of yet either, presumably because there are already 12 women on the show and WWE don't want people to think they're going soft. This is a man's pretend sport after all. It is a man's pretend sport. So, with just one more week before the show, and Asuka apparently in hiding after the shame of her recent run of victories, and RONDA just aimlessly beating folks up while we wait for Mania, we may not see either of them compete on the night. Ronda Rousey to compete! Because that narc, Dave Meltzer, reported on Wrestling Observer Radio that in a conversation he had with WWE, they assured him that Ronda would be making an appearance and that this would be for a match. Now, judging by the fact that she tapped out both Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan of the Riot Squad on this week's Raw, if we follow the alternate reality version of Final Fight all the way through to its conclusion, then her next target would be the Riot Squad boss, Ruby Riott. 2 out of 3 falls, first fall, Ruby's in a wheelchair. Though if WWE changes their mind and Ronda isn't having a match, she could still very easily make an appearance to further her feud with Becky Lynch. Now, Becky has exposed Ronda several times over the past couple of weeks, and so Ronda, much like me, has some unfinished business to attend to. Add to that the fact that you could ban Becky from the show as part of her suspension, which would give Ronda a chance to have an uninterrupted promo. And given that she's quite a lot weaker on the mic than Becky, giving her the chance to speak without Lynch breathing down her neck would give Ronda the chance to hit back at the man finally, although she'll just get killed on social media again. No, Seth Rollins. After winning the Royal Rumble, Seth Rollins is next in line to the throne. And if he topples Brock Lesnar at Mania, you might want to rethink the Kingslayer nickname. But with such a big program ahead of him, it's kind of weird that we didn't see Rollins on Raw this week. And that is because he's reportedly nursing a back injury. Now, according to grief tourist Dave Meltzer, Seth's ouchie isn't serious enough to keep him out of his Mania match against the Beast, but it is enough to keep him out of the ring for at least a month. And that means he likely won't be at, in, or around the chamber. The good thing is that Elimination Chamber is the perfect time for Seth to rest up, as there are multiple big matches with complex rules happening to excite the audience. It's not exactly like Brock defends the Universal title all that often either, so it won't be needed for a run-in or a promo, because Brock. A Raw team will be the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions. The final lineup for the Women's Tag Championship Elimination Chamber match is as follows. Tamina and Nia Jax. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan. Bayley and Sasha Banks, the Boss and Hug Connection. Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, the Iconics. Naomi and Carmella, 2 randoms. Hardys versus Dudleys versus Edge and Christian. You ain't got nothing on this. Cage Side Seats reported last month that their current understanding is that a team from Raw will win the belts. Cause, as we all know, Raw is the home of great tag team wrestling. Now that would mean we get the choice of either the Boss and Hug Connection, the Riots, or the Samoan Squash Squad taking home the gold. Now, depending on which site you look at, the current favourites are either Boss Hug or the Ketchup Bandits, which would make sense given that they are actually tag teams, proper ones, that could lead the division for some time. Now, Bayley and Banks, although deserving of a much better spot on the card, are 2 people who have been given the role of openly promoting a women's tag division on TV. But whether WWE are kind of keen on giving us that feel-good moment of them rising to the top or not, dunno. Might be Nia and Tamina. To argue the case for the Riot Squad then, although they're mostly used to get other talent over, they are a legitimate tag team and have been since their main roster call-up. And it would make a lot of sense then to put the belts on a team with proven longevity, and also there's some fun Freebird rule shenanigans in there too. But as the belts will be defended across both brands, it's likely that all of the teams on this list will hold them at some point. Maybe not Naomi and Carmella, because I can't see that standing the test of time. But as a pairing, the inaugural champions should be someone worthy and not just your dance partners of convenience. Potential returns. Between now and WrestleMania, we've got 2 pay-per-views. We've got Elimination Chamber and we have got Fastlane. Typically, not a lot happens on these shows, as they are just there to kind of give the current champions a bit of momentum heading into the showcase of the Immortals. But this year, I guess it could be different. Because if you haven't noticed already, because basically nothing has changed, we are in a new era of WWE. And like the transitions between all of the eras, this means new things. From the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, we changed our preference of fork material. And from the old era of WWE to this new era of WWE, we're waiting for them to welcome back people they were underusing a year ago. And that is because WWE's current injury list is longer than an evening with Randy Datson feels. But now that the reports are coming through that some of these names are in good enough shape to return, why not just pull the trigger on those returns and give the fans something to shout about? And also, it's about bloody time to pay off on those returning soon vignettes we were getting for weeks on Raw. Soon what? Soon-ish? according to Kevin Owens, who coincidentally is one of the most obvious names on the Ready to Return list, who last week tweeted that he had wrestled with Adam Cole, baby, in front of one spectator, and that was presumably at the Performance Center ahead of his main roster return. Now, Owens has been out for several months following knee surgery, but his final feud before this was with Bobby Bobbins Bobbert Lashley. Owens had kind of turned babyface prior to this injury in the same way that everyone is doing it now, by being cross with how their life is panning out. And so, with heel Lashley rumoured to be on the card in a match with Finn Balor, could we have Owens turning up to get some sweet, sweet, sweet revenge? It wouldn't obviously be the most babyface thing to do, then again, everyone is a tweener now, so why the hell not? Another name that could very easily return is Bray Wyatt. Now, Wyatt has a history with the WWE title in the Elimination Chamber, where he won the belt from AJ Styles in 2017 for a long and storied 5 minutes run. But even with that said, he could finally return after a long hiatus to help Bryan defend his belt and prove, finally, that dreadlocks are, in fact, a vegan stereotype. Because this could be the new gimmick he was teasing on Twitter a while ago. He could be Quan again as a vegan. Who do you think is going to win at the Elimination Chamber? Well, if you're so blooming confident, why don't you become a patron and you can put your predicting skills to the test in the Wrestle League against every other Pledgehammer, the WrestleTalks, and myself, Ollie and Luke. You'll also get a whole bunch of other lovely stuff too, like shout-outs and exclusive podcasts to boot. Lovely stuff. And why not give us a subscribe to stay up to date on all of the latest wrestling news? I've been El Fagador, and that was Lucha.